General Vex Tholen stood on the command deck of the Caldraxian dreadnought Inevitable Conquest, his scaled skin gleaming under the harsh lights as he watched Earth rotate innocently below. His taloned fingers drummed against the polished obsidian of his command console, each tap echoing his impatience. Behind him loomed his pride, a trophy wall displaying relics from 17 conquered civilizations, each representing billions of lives subjugated to the glory of the Empire. "Primitive," he muttered, gesturing with a six-fingered hand at the holographic representation of Earth's military capabilities. The projection scattered into pixels as he crushed it dismissively. Their most advanced weapons barely qualify as technology. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Krasver, bowed deeply. "Intelligence reports classify them as a Level 3 civilization, General. Their military structures lack unified command. Their weapons rely primarily on chemical propellants and crude fission devices." Vex Tholen's primary eyes narrowed while his secondary set scanned the tactical displays. "They still employ aircraft with wings," he said, the Caldraxian words for these concepts carrying tones of derision, reserved for particularly backward species. "And their ground forces require rest periods." This last observation triggered a ripple of amusement among the bridge crew. The concept of warriors needing to suspend combat operations for biological recovery seemed absurdly inefficient. "The diplomatic envoy has returned, General," announced a communications officer. "The humans have rejected our terms." A slow smile spread across Vex Tholen's face, revealing rows of serrated teeth. This was the moment he had anticipated, the moment that justified the invasion to follow. The Caldraxian Empire never seized a world without offering terms first. It maintained the appearance of civilization, even as it expanded relentlessly across the galaxy. "Send a single strike team to their remote military installation designated Sierra," Vex Tholen ordered. "Minimal force, maximum visibility. I want them to understand what they face before we begin planetary pacification." From his command platform, Vex Tholen watched as the assault shuttle descended toward the blue planet. The operation should require no more than 20 minutes, a precision demonstration of Caldraxian superiority. He had performed this ritual dozens of times, each following the same predictable pattern. Initial resistance, followed by terror, concluding with surrender. 73 minutes later, the shuttle returned. Vex Tholen's expression darkened as he noted the damage to its hull, primitive ballistic impacts, and what appeared to be scorch marks from chemical explosives. "Report," he demanded as the strike team commander staggered onto the bridge. The officer's armor bore signs of combat, and Vex Tholen counted only 8 warriors behind him. 10 had deployed. The humans. The commander's voice faltered, a disgrace that would normally merit immediate demotion. Battle footage began streaming on the main view screen. Vex Tholen's mandibles clicked in disbelief as he watched his elite soldiers, genetically engineered and cybernetically enhanced for battlefield supremacy, fall to primitive ballistic weapons and improvised traps. The installation had been destroyed as planned, but at a cost no one had predicted. 12 Caldraxian warriors dead, the first combat fatalities the Empire had suffered in 3 generations. "An anomaly," Vex Tholen declared, violently terminating the playback. Their defensive capabilities were underestimated. From the shadows of the command deck, Intelligence Officer Nyx Aren stepped forward. Her species had been incorporated into the Empire centuries ago, valued for their analytical capabilities. She had been studying the footage with growing concern. "General," she said quietly, "their counter-attack pattern contained 23 tactical variations executed in under 6 minutes. Our combat algorithms predicted only 4 possible responses." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "They adapted to our technology almost immediately." Vex Tholen dismissed her observation with a slashing gesture. "Prepare for full invasion protocol," he commanded. "We will not underestimate them again." Blood streaked Major Helena Chen's face as she dragged Private Ramirez through the smoking ruins of Outpost Sierra. The young soldier's breathing came in ragged gasps, his leg mangled by some alien energy weapon that had cauterized the wound even as it tore through flesh and bone. All around them, the installation that had been her home for 3 years lay in ruins, concrete and steel twisted into unrecognizable shapes by weapons beyond human understanding. "Stay with me, Ramirez," she ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos. Her combat helmet continued recording everything. Standard protocol that now might provide Earth's only insight into what they faced. "Medical tent is 200 meters east." A sound like tearing metal cut through the air. Chen froze, recognizing it from the initial attack, the disharmonic resonance of the invaders' communication system. She lowered Ramirez behind a collapsed wall and unholstered her sidearm, a standard-issue M9. Against the alien's armor, it had proven about as effective as throwing pebbles. Through the smoke, she spotted a lone figure, one of the invaders separated from its unit. The alien moved with deliberate precision, scanning the ruins with a sensor device. Its armored exoskeleton gleamed despite the dust and debris, illuminated by pulsing lights that seemed to indicate rank or function. The creature stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 articulated arms and a helmet that concealed any facial features. Chen studied its movements, noting something crucial: a distinct heaviness to its gait, a measured quality to each step. The realization struck her. Despite their technological superiority, these invaders moved slower than humans. Without hesitation, she executed a plan that would have seemed suicidal moments ago. "Cover your ears, Ramirez," she whispered, then triggered the remote detonator for the emergency demolition charges in the nearby communications hub, charges meant for scorched earth protocol if the base ever needed to be abandoned. The explosion wasn't aimed at killing the alien, but at collapsing the already damaged structure beside it. Tons of concrete and metal crashed down, trapping the creature's lower limbs. It didn't scream, perhaps couldn't, but its upper arms flailed with unexpected panic as it tried to free itself. Chen moved with a speed the alien couldn't match, closing the distance in seconds. Its arms whipped toward her, but she was already inside its reach, jamming her combat knife into a gap between armor plates, near what she guessed was a neural cluster. The blade, designed for terrestrial combat, barely penetrated, but the alien's movements faltered. Working with desperate efficiency, she located and extracted what appeared to be a data module from the creature's armor, a crystalline structure that pulsed with stored information. The alien's attempts to stop her were sluggish, its powerful but ponderous limbs swinging through empty air as she dodged with the reflexes of a combat veteran. 3 days later, in a hardened underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Chen stood before a wall of screens displaying the grim faces of surviving world leaders. Her uniform was pristine now, but the fresh scar across her temple told of her recent experience. "They expect us to fight conventionally and die conventionally," she said, her voice steady despite having barely slept since the attack. On the main screen, her combat footage played, frame-by-frame analysis of the aliens' movements, weaponry, and tactics. A silver-haired general leaned forward. "What about their energy weapons? How do we counter?" Chen interrupted by playing a different clip, footage of Private Rodriguez, the outpost cook with no formal combat training, successfully taking down an alien warrior using nothing but kitchen implements and improvised tactics that had confused and ultimately defeated his technologically superior opponent. "Their fighting style is methodical, almost algorithmic," Chen explained, highlighting the predictable attack patterns in the footage. "They fight like they've never encountered an enemy that forced them to adapt." She paused the video on a frame showing the alien hesitating when Rodriguez had done something completely unexpected, hurling caustic cleaning chemicals to temporarily blind its sensors instead of retreating. "But humans," she continued, meeting the eyes of each leader in turn, "we're frighteningly unpredictable. That's not our weakness against these invaders. It's our strength. Commence planet-wide deployment," Vex Thulan commanded, his voice reverberating through the war chamber of the inevitable conquest. Massive holographic displays illuminated his scaled features as he surveyed Earth's major population centers, each targeted with precision strikes. The projections forecasted minimal Caldraxian casualties and complete subjugation of the primitive species within 14 standard days. A conservative estimate, in his opinion. All carrier groups report ready, General. Sub-Commander Krasver announced, mandibles clicking with anticipation. Drop ships will breach atmosphere in synchronized waves. Vextholin's secondary eyes remained fixed on the tactical display where Earth rotated, blissfully ignorant of its impending doom. Begin, he ordered simply. 72 hours later, the general's confidence had transformed into confusion. A Caldraxian battalion commander's frantic transmission cut through the command center's disciplined silence. Heavy casualties in Sector Chicago Prime. The officer's voice carried an emotion rarely heard in Caldraxian communications. Fear. The humans have. The transmission fractured into static as the battalion commander's battle cam showed empty streets suddenly erupting with hidden explosives that emitted frequencies precisely calibrated to disrupt Caldraxian shield harmonics, technology the invaders had only introduced to Earth days earlier. Before High Command could respond, the feed cut to static. It was the 12th such report in as many hours. Impossible, Krasvar muttered, all four hands working frantically across tactical displays. They couldn't have analyzed and countered our shield technology this quickly. Vextholin silenced him with a gesture. Show me Seoul deployment zone. The holographic display shifted to South Korea, where Caldraxian dropships had encountered no military resistance upon landing. A textbook submission scenario. The general's satisfaction lasted precisely 8 seconds before civilian vehicles, construction equipment loaded with crude but devastatingly effective explosive devices, swarmed the landing zone from concealed underground tunnels. The lead dropship disappeared in a fireball that briefly overwhelmed the feed's radiation filters. Moscow sector, Vextholin demanded, his voice dangerously calm. The display shifted again. A Caldraxian hunting party pursued retreating human soldiers through urban ruins. The humans appeared to be fleeing in disarray, until they led their pursuers into subway tunnels that collapsed both ahead and behind them, trapping the alien force in a kill box of their own making. In the war chamber's sudden silence, Intelligence Officer Nix Eren stepped forward. General, our invasion paradigm assumes conventional resistance followed by submission. These humans, she hesitated, they're not fighting by any tactical doctrines in our database. Meanwhile, in the shadows of a captured Caldraxian communications hub outside Berlin, Major Chen moved with predatory precision. Her multinational team of special forces operators followed closely, each selected not for their adherence to military doctrine, but for their creativity in combat situations. Charges set, whispered Lieutenant Okafor, her hands moving with practiced efficiency as she placed improvised explosives, combining Earth chemicals with repurposed alien power cells. Devices no Caldraxian detection system had been programmed to recognize. Chen nodded, her expression illuminated by the alien console she was hacking. The data crystal she'd extracted from the captured alien had proven invaluable, providing access codes that should have been impenetrable. 90 seconds, she whispered, watching as the download bar crept forward on her tactical display. And complete. The team vanished into the night moments before the charges detonated, taking another piece of the Caldraxian communication network offline. Beneath Cambridge University's ruins, Dr. Amara Okafor, Lieutenant Okafor's older sister, stared in disbelief at her test results. The laboratory had been moved underground after the initial bombardment, but the work continued with desperate urgency. It shouldn't be possible, she murmured as her assistant connected a captured Caldraxian neural interface to their volunteer test subject, a former video game champion whose reaction times had tested off the charts. On the monitor, the human's neural patterns flowed through the alien technology at speeds 43% faster than the Caldraxian's own benchmark data. The subject's ability to process information and adapt to changing interface parameters exceeded anything in the captured alien records. It's our neuroplasticity, Dr. Okafor realized, her mind already racing with possibilities as she recorded the results. They've engineered themselves into evolutionary stagnation, while our brains. She watched as the test subject instinctively adapted to the alien system's attempts to recalibrate. Our brains are chaos in action. Vex Tholen smashed a holographic display, his armored fist leaving the device in sparking ruins. The invasion timeline projection, once proudly displayed at 14 standard days, now mockingly read estimated completion, 93 standard days. Even that seemed optimistic. The casualty reports from Earth grew more alarming with each transmission, and a communique from Imperial Command flashed insistently on his private channel, the third demand for explanation this cycle. Terrain difficulties, he growled to his assembled staff, all of whom carefully avoided eye contact. Environmental factors unforeseen by preliminary scans. The lies tasted bitter, but no Caldraxian officer dared suggest the truth, that a technologically inferior species was consistently outthinking them. "We've lost 30% of our deployed forces," reported Krasver, his voice carefully modulated to hide any emotion, primarily to tactics that our combat simulators classified as suicidal or irrational. "Show me," Vex Tholen demanded. The central display activated, showing the human settlement in the region designated Australia. Caldraxian forces had established a forward operating base in what appeared to be an abandoned township. The footage showed the moment when local resistance fighters struck, not with direct assaults, but by triggering a controlled brush fire that approached from multiple directions. As Caldraxian protocols dictated, the commander ordered an immediate withdrawal to avoid equipment damage. What the invaders hadn't anticipated was that the humans had studied their evacuation patterns and mined the designated extraction zones with improvised explosives designed to disable, not destroy. The follow-up ambush had been devastating. Humans appearing from underground bunkers, attacking with weapons modified to exploit the vulnerabilities in standard Caldraxian armor. In a sterile chamber aboard the Caldraxian medical frigate Biological Supremacy, intelligence officer Nick Saran observed human prisoners through one-way glass. For weeks, her scientific team had been running tests, attempting to categorize human combat behaviors into predictable algorithms. The results defied Caldraxian understanding. "Play the stimulus scenario again," she ordered, her four eyes narrowing in concentration. The observation chamber filled with holographic projections, simulating a combat scenario where one human soldier was threatened. The prisoners' biometric readings spiked, not in fear for themselves, but in apparent concern for each other. When one prisoner believed another was being harmed, their combat effectiveness actually increased rather than diminished. "It makes no evolutionary sense," muttered a Caldraxian scientist, reviewing the data. "They become more dangerous when protecting others, not themselves." Nick Saran's hand traced patterns in the biometric data. They're using shared trauma as a bonding mechanism, creating stronger unit cohesion through emotional connection rather than hierarchical enforcement. The concept was so alien to Caldraxian society that their language lacked words to properly describe it. Meanwhile, in a repurposed broadcast station beneath the ruins of Tokyo, Major Chen worked alongside psychological warfare experts, her face illuminated by screens displaying captured Caldraxian communication frequencies. "Are you certain this will work?" asked Colonel Tanaka of Japanese Special Forces. Chen nodded, reviewing the data from Dr. Okafor's neural interface studies. Their brains process information differently than ours, more structured, less adaptable. These sound patterns create cognitive dissonance in their neural pathways. On the broadcast console, a technician had prepared the strangest weapons of the war, recordings of human music with irregular time signatures, children's laughter, spontaneous celebrations, and other chaotic audio that followed no discernible pattern. To human ears, the sounds held emotional meaning. To the rigidly structured Caldraxian mind, They created profound confusion. "Broadcast on all captured frequencies," Chen ordered. "Let's see how well they fight when they can't think straight." Hours later, reports began filtering in from resistance cells worldwide. Elite Caldraxian strike teams, previously unstoppable, now hesitated in combat situations, their movements uncharacteristically uncertain as the audio invasion disrupted their thought processes. In several engagements, human forces reported alien warriors freezing momentarily, caught between their training and their inability to process the chaotic auditory input. For the first time since the invasion began, Vex Tholen felt something he couldn't immediately identify, a sensation his species had engineered out of themselves generations ago. Fear. 6 months into what was supposed to be a 2-week campaign, Vex Tholen's command carrier orbited a planet that had become his personal nightmare. In his private chambers, the general reviewed footage of his latest defeat, this time in the Philippines, where human civilians had used simple fishing nets to tangle the legs of his assault mechs, causing them to topple into prepared pit traps. The humans had sacrificed an entire neighborhood as bait, seemingly without hesitation. A chime signaled an incoming transmission, his third in command, requesting audience with increasing urgency. When Vex Tholen finally accepted the call, he found not one officer but 7, their expressions grim beneath their ceremonial helmets. "The casualty reports have been falsified," stated Commander Zexerlon without preamble. "We've lost not 30% of our invasion force, but 58%. Vex Tholen's secondary eyes widened as the true statistics scrolled across his display. Thousands of elite warriors lost to what Imperial records classified as strategically irrational human behaviors. The officers' unified stance spoke volumes. They stood on the precipice of mutiny, something unheard of in Caldraxian military history. "High Command must be informed of the true situation," continued Zexerlon. "The Empire has a right to know that this species cannot be subjugated through standard protocols." The evidence could no longer be denied. Humans sacrificed themselves to save comrades, fought beyond physical limitations when family members were threatened, and demonstrated unnerving adaptability in repurposing Caldraxian technology against them. In one particularly disturbing incident, human prisoners had deliberately infected themselves with modified pathogens that remained dormant until they were brought aboard Caldraxian vessels for interrogation. Meanwhile, in a hardened bunker beneath the Swiss Alps, Major Chen, now bearing the insignia of a full general, stood before holograms of Earth's remaining military leadership. The room fell silent as she activated the global tactical display. "Operation Checkmate," she announced, highlighting key points across the planetary map. "Our first coordinated global offensive." On screens around the chamber, false intelligence began feeding into Caldraxian networks, showing apparent weaknesses in human defenses around key governmental facilities. "They think analytically, not intuitively," Chen explained, highlighting the elaborate deception. "Their strategic algorithms will calculate that capturing Earth's political leadership will break our will to fight." She zoomed in on urban centers that had been subtly modified. Buildings partially collapsed in specific patterns, subway systems flooded in strategic sections, power grids rewired to deliver surges on command. When they deploy into these environments, their size, armor, and formation tactics become liabilities, not advantages, she continued, her finger tracing the narrow corridors created by collapsed structures. Their predictive software considers only strategic value, not whether a target might be too convenient or too tempting. 3 days later, Vex Tholen watched with growing satisfaction as his reserve forces converged on what intelligence identified as a gathering of Earth's central government in Geneva. The humans appeared to be making a last, desperate stand, committing significant forces to the defense. It was the opportunity he had been waiting for, a chance to redeem himself in the eyes of the Empire. Only when his troops were fully committed did he realize the truth. There was no government summit, only a carefully orchestrated trap, His forces found themselves in narrow urban corridors where their energy weapons caused cascading structural collapses. Their heavy armor slowed them down in the rubble, and human soldiers emerged from hidden chambers to attack with devastating precision at close quarters. "Pull back," Vextholen ordered, but it was too late. The humans had studied Caldraxian retreat protocols and mined the designated extraction points. Units that attempted to regroup found themselves isolated by carefully planned ambushes. For the first time in the general's 3-century career, he experienced an emotion his species had engineered away generations ago: doubt. His hand trembled slightly as he opened a direct channel to Imperial High Command. "This is General Vextholen," he began, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. "I must report tactical miscalculation." Rain lashed the windows of the repurposed automotive factory outside Detroit, where Dr. Okafor supervised the final integration phase of Project Chimera. The vast assembly floor, once home to combustion engine vehicles, now housed hundreds of modified Caldraxian battle platforms, captured or salvaged from destroyed alien units, each retrofitted with a human neural interface. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the cavernous space as the test pilot emerged from the prototype. Aisha Rahman, formerly the youngest Formula One champion in history, removed her neural connection helmet with trembling hands, her pupils still dilated from the interface. "It's like..." She struggled to find words, blinking rapidly as her brain readjusted to human perception speeds. "It reads my intentions before I even complete the thought." She stared at her hands in wonder and terror. The Caldraxians use these machines at maybe 15% of their capability because they're limited by their rigid thinking patterns. Major General Chen, her face bearing new scars from the Geneva operation, studied the pilot's neural telemetry on a nearby monitor. The readings showed synapse firing rates far beyond normal human baseline. The interface was somehow accelerating Rahman's already exceptional reaction times. "And we're not," Chen finished, a grim smile forming. "How soon can we deploy?" Dr. Okafor checked her tablet. "We have 26 units ready now. Another 100 within the week." Chen nodded. "Begin final preparations. Operation Prometheus launches in 36 hours. 1 month later, aboard the inevitable Conquest, Vextholen received word that his forward base in what was once northern Canada had gone dark. The general's primary eyes narrowed as he studied the surveillance footage. Something moved through the smoke and destruction, something that appeared Caldraxian in design, but moved with impossible speed and unpredictability. Before he could issue orders, similar reports flooded in from bases across the planet. "Impossible," he whispered, watching as the unidentified units evaded every countermeasure, anticipated every defensive protocol. "They can't have mastered our own technology this quickly." General Chen led the 1st Chimera Unit Squadron personally, her neural implants connecting her consciousness directly to the captured Caldraxian walker. The machine, designed for methodical battlefield supremacy, now responded to her thoughts with fluid grace that would have been impossible for its original operators. Her squadron moved through Caldraxian defenses with frightening efficiency, exploiting patterns and weaknesses the mathematically minded aliens could never perceive. Inside the primary Caldraxian research outpost in Antarctica, Chen's team breached the central data core. As she interfaced with the alien database, fragmented images flashed through her neural link. Star maps, genetic sequences, ancient ruins on distant worlds. The revelation struck her with physical force, momentarily disrupting her connection. "They didn't come here just for resources," she transmitted to command, her voice tight with shock. "Cross-referenced these genetic markers with the Human Genome Project." The analysis took seconds. Earth was not chosen randomly. The data showed human genetic code contained unique markers, making humans capable of operating technology from a civilization that predates even the Caldraxian Empire. Technology the invaders had sought for centuries but been unable to activate. "They came for us," she continued, downloading the critical data. "For something in our DNA." Aboard his command carrier, Vex Tholan received the emergency transmission from his research division, seconds before Chen's Chimera units breached his vessel's outer defenses. The pieces fell into place too late. The humans' seemingly primitive nervous systems, their chaotic thought patterns, their genetic variability, all traits the Caldraxians had engineered out of themselves generations ago in pursuit of perfect order. His flagship's engines screamed in protest as human-piloted Chimera units tore through its defenses using combat maneuvers no Caldraxian would ever attempt. Seemingly suicidal approaches that somehow succeeded through sheer audacity. Warning klaxons blared as the massive vessel lost altitude, plummeting toward Earth's Atlantic Ocean. "Evacuate command staff," Vex Tholan ordered, his voice unnaturally calm, as he initiated the ship's self-destruct sequence. He barely reached an escape pod, watching through the viewport as his magnificent command carrier, the pride of the Caldraxian fleet, broke apart upon impact with the churning ocean below. Vex Tholan's escape pod crashed high in the Himalayan mountains, the harsh wind howling around the twisted metal as he emerged. Blood from 3 of his 6 eyes froze instantly in the bitter cold, but the pain barely registered. Physical discomfort was nothing compared to the agony of failure. The emergency beacon automatically activated, signaling Imperial High Command. Vex Tholan waited, standing perfectly still despite the biting cold, for the response that would determine his fate. When it came, it was immediate and devastating. Not rescue coordinates, but formal disconnection. After 8 centuries of unbroken Caldraxian military victory, he had become the first general to be stripped of command and declared Thax Morve, evolutionary waste. For exactly 7 heartbeats, Vex Tholan considered the honorable path. Ritual suicide, as Caldraxian military doctrine demanded. Instead, he silenced the beacon with a decisive blow from his armored fist. With burning determination, he activated his emergency protocols, sending encrypted signals to the scattered remnants of his once mighty invasion fleet. "Your sworn oath is to me, not the empire that abandoned us," his message stated simply. "Join me or perish alone." Within days, a formidable fortification rose among the snowy peaks, bristling with salvaged weapon systems and shielded by experimental technology never before deployed on Earth. Inside the hastily constructed command center, Vex Tholan obsessively studied captured combat footage, dissecting every human victory. "There must be a pattern," he muttered, mandibles clicking in frustration as he reviewed the same sequences for the 100th time. No species can be truly unpredictable. General Chen, observing the alien stronghold through high-powered binoculars from a forward operating base 5 kilometers away, knew better than to underestimate her opponent, even in desperation. The international force she commanded represented every surviving military on Earth, a coalition that would have been unthinkable before the invasion. "Their defensive grid is unlike anything we've encountered," she told her assembled officers, highlighting the energy readings from the mountain fortress. A direct assault would be suicide. As her team prepared alternative strategies, a Caldraxian shuttle broke through the cloud cover under a white flag, a human gesture of parley that surprised everyone present. Nexoren, Vex Tholan's former intelligence officer, stepped cautiously into the human encampment, her 4 hands raised in the universal gesture of surrender. The translator device at her throat clicked and whirred as she addressed Chen directly. "He doesn't understand what's happening," she explained, her artificial voice struggling with concepts alien to Caldraxian language. "None of them do." She activated a holographic projector that displayed comparative neural architecture, Caldraxian brains alongside human ones. "Our evolutionary path prioritized order and predictability," she continued, pointing to the rigidly structured Caldraxian neural pathways. "Your species retained chaos and variation." The display shifted to show battle simulations where Caldraxian forces consistently failed to anticipate human tactics. "Our entire military doctrine is based on predictable opponents who follow logical patterns, because for millennia, that's all we've encountered." "And now?" Chen asked. "Now you face a cornered predator," Nexoran replied. Vex Tholen has deployed experimental weapons systems in that fortress. He fights not for victory anymore, but for understanding. He believes if he can decipher the secret of human combat adaptability before he dies, his name will be redeemed in Caldraxian history. As dawn broke over the mountains, Chen's forces began their assault on the fortress. Despite Nixaran's intelligence, the battle proved brutal. The cornered general had deployed experimental weapon systems and fought with the desperation of one who had lost everything but pride. From his command center, Vex Tholen watched in disbelief as human soldiers deliberately exposed themselves to enemy fire, drawing attention so their companions could advance undetected. A concept so alien to Caldraxian combat doctrine that his tactical systems repeatedly failed to formulate appropriate responses. Illogical, he whispered, even as his defenses crumbled. Evolutionarily disadvantageous. Yet the evidence before him proved otherwise. As the unthinkable happened, his perfect defense fell to an enemy he had dismissed as primitive. Snow fell softly on the battlefield as the guns finally fell silent. Smoke rose from the ruins of Vex Tholen's mountain fortress, the experimental shield generators now nothing more than twisted metal against the white landscape. Medical teams moved among the wounded, human and Caldraxian alike, as the final battle for Earth concluded not with complete destruction, but with something unprecedented in the Empire's long history: surrender. In a repurposed United Nations chamber in Geneva, under the watchful eyes of representatives from every surviving nation, Vex Tholen kneeled in ceremonial submission. His ornate armor, once gleaming with the pride of the Empire, was battle-scared and dull. 3 of his eyes remained bandaged, the injuries sustained during the final assault likely permanent. When he rose, he faced General Chen across the negotiating table, 2 warriors who had seen the best and worst of each other's species. We mistook technological advancement for evolutionary superiority, Vex Tholen admitted, his translator struggling with concepts that had no direct equivalent in his language. We engineered ourselves toward perfection, never realizing what we were losing. Chen nodded, understanding the lethal miscalculation at the heart of the invasion. In their drive for efficiency, the Caldraxians had engineered out the very traits that make humans formidable: creativity, emotion-driven decision-making, and adaptability. Their perfect predictability had become their greatest weakness against an enemy who thrived on chaos. Your species shouldn't have been able to defeat us, Vex Tholen continued, genuine puzzlement in his remaining eyes. By every metric we value, you are inferior. Your technology is primitive, your social structures disorganized, your biological forms fragile. He paused, mandibles clicking in what humans had learned was a gesture of profound respect. Yet you prevailed because of qualities we discarded millennia ago. The peace terms were generous, more so than many human leaders preferred. In exchange for Caldraxian withdrawal and non-aggression, Earth would share its understanding of neural interface technology. The Caldraxians, in turn, would provide limited technological assistance for rebuilding. As Caldraxian troop carriers departed Earth's atmosphere, humanity began the long process of rebuilding. Cities rose from ruins, incorporating salvaged alien technology with human ingenuity. Earth's military forces were reorganized around the principles that proved so effective, emphasizing human unpredictability and psychological resilience over technological parity. At the newly established Global Defense Academy in Nairobi, cadets gathered for the most important lesson in their curriculum. The holographic display showed footage from the war as the instructor began. The Vex Tholen lesson is simple. The most dangerous assumption in warfare is underestimating an opponent's capacity to adapt. Meanwhile, in the distant heart of Caldraxian space, aboard a research station orbiting a dying star, the Imperial Science Directorate convened in secret. Data from the Earth campaign scrolled across their displays, evidence of a military defeat unprecedented in their history. The human neural plasticity samples confirm our theory, announced the chief scientist, her ceremonial markings indicating her status as a direct genetic descendant of the Empire's founders. Our pursuit of perfection has led us to evolutionary stagnation. After heated debate, they initiated Protocol Renaissance, a controversial program to reintroduce genetic variation and neural plasticity into their warrior breeding lines. As she activated the gene splicing apparatus, the chief scientist reflected on the irony. In their quest for the perfect soldier, they had eliminated the very qualities that make a species truly indomitable in combat. Back on Earth, General Chen stood at a window overlooking a recovering planet. On her desk sat a small trophy, a piece of Vex Tholan's command insignia, given to her as a gesture of warrior's respect. Beside it lay Earth's first interstellar diplomatic communique, ready for transmission to neighboring star systems. The message was simple: underestimate us at your peril.